Because I was really shocked, listening to the statement of Trent speaking in Spanish. I was expecting, the proper English guy to actually deliver a statement in English, but then surprisingly, that man, dealt with that one and he spoke in Spanish. Well, I'm still shocked right now, but then the Liverpool fans have a lot to say. Some of them still cannot forgive the fact that Trent Alexander-Arnold had to leave the club to join Madrid. But you cannot fault him. I definitely want to play for arguably the biggest football club in world football right now. Sport Umpire, good afternoon to you, and of course, happy Democracy Day to you too.
Yeah, wonderful afternoon to you as well, Biodun Sports, and to all of our listeners, happy Democracy Day. Of course, it's really good to be back here again to talk sports in a big way. All lot to celebrate in the world of sports this lovely afternoon, and the unveiling of Matheus Cunha by Manchester United, and of course Trent Alexander-Arnold by Real Madrid. Well, a Liverpool fan time for these players to actually learn different languages. They've played alongside Spanish players, they've played against Spanish teams, and of course these are just the basics. You would expect him to know some of these things. In fact, he might have been preparing for this particular day like since the day he was sure that he was going to be joining this, if he bumps forward and all of that. But all in all, I think what he offers going forward is enough to cover for whatever defensive frailties that Trent Alexander-Arnold might have got for this Real Madrid team. Honestly, I'm looking forward to him doing
the Trent Alexander-Arnold presentation is done and dusted. Liverpool fans are still, of course, they should be angry because they were expecting, Madrid to at least pay something. Maybe the transfer market fee, aside the fact that they actually paid 10 million pounds for him to be part of the team at the Club World Cup. But listening to Trent this afternoon, he made mention of Liverpool. He appreciates them. He still holds the club in high esteem. And I think with all of this right now, I think the fans should let go. They should forgive him.
A homegrown talent. He came to the academy, has been there for 20 years. Being separated from a relationship of 20 years is going to be very, very hard for the fans to even say, okay, yes, we had him for 20 years, then he left us and moved on here. It's going to be a very, very hard thing to do. So I understand them, but this is football. Football has evolved past, oh, we are going to stay in one club for 1 year, for the whole of my career, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Football has evolved from that. Now players want to experience new countries, new climates, get more money. So there's a whole lot going on. You cannot expect in Steven Gerrard of 2000 or 1990. You cannot expect in Steven Gerrard of 2000 or 1990 something to be also something. To be also now be comparing him with the young Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now be comparing him with the young Trent Alexander-Arnold. Who knows? He's one of the best. He's one of the best in his positions, and one of the best players in the world is calling for him. So he clearly in his positions, and one of the best players in the world is calling for him. So he clearly has to move.
Right, well, I think that is what Madrid tend to do. I think that is what Madrid tend to do. Well, if they knock on your door, you definitely have to open because they are one of the best clubs in world football right now. Well, let's move away from that. Let's go straight to another team who have got a fantastic player, a Brazilian player who is currently one of the most informed players in the English Premier League this season. Talking about Matheus Cunha, who signed for Manchester United, and according to the Brazilian international, he said his dream had become a reality after completing his 62.5 million move to Manchester United, and today that man signed a 5-year contract with an option of a further 12 months. That is a whole lot, if you ask me, because you look at what Chelsea are currently doing right now. They give some of their players a 6-year contract, a 7-year contract, and I think that is the trend right now. But then looking at what this man will bring to the table for Manchester United, he would definitely bring a whole lot into that team. But the question is can he fit into it seems there might be light at the end of the tunnel for Ruben Amorim, the left side. Sports Umpire, let's talk about the Brazilian man, talking about Matheus Cunha, who came from Atletico Madrid. He joined, but the question is, can this man deliver for Manchester United, knowing full well that the same Manchester United that team struggled last season, and the fans will be expecting some sort of magic from Matheus Cunha.
Of course, any player that Manchester United bring in now, they are expecting that player to turn their season around, to turn their team around, no matter how you want to put it. Honestly, Matheus Cunha, great addition. Premier League experience is already there. There's no need for worrying about adaptation, having to settle down, all of that. But then, just like you said, the big question is how would he fit into this Manchester United team? And of course, would the inability of the other players to do well, would this not also rub off on a certain Matheus Cunha? We have seen guys who were very good at their previous club before they joined Manchester United, and then they caught the virus immediately they joined this particular Manchester United team. Now that's the big problem now, and I think it depends on the way Ruben Amorim wants to slot Matheus Cunha into the team. We have been hearing talks of him wanting Matheus Cunha in the number 10 role. Then he might probably play 2 10s, maybe Matheus Cunha and Bruno Fernandes. I think if they do that, then they should still be going for a number 9. They should still be getting the center forward, because you can't have to rely on Matheus Cunha for goals. Yes, he did well for Wolverhampton Wanderers in the just concluded season. I think he scored 15 goals and 6 assists, and that is his best tally so far in his career. Before then, I think he got 12 goals and 7 assists. The season before the season, he joined Wolverhampton Wanderers. In 15 appearances, I don't think even it doesn't really deliver. That is why they would see you go from a certain Atletico Madrid and go on loan to Wolverhampton Wanderers before Wolves made this move permanent. Then, but now, well, I think that is really good for them. Don't leave all of the creative roles on Bruno Fernandes alone. But then they still need to bring in someone who has to put the ball in the back of the net, which has been one of United's problem in the just concluded season. One thing again is that Matheus Cunha has not really got that strength like for like 10 or 15 minutes and do his thing. You might not see him again for the entirety of the game. But at United, you need to be on top of your game all through the 90 minutes. All of those may not be required at Wolves, but at Manchester United, a lot of people will be looking at you anytime that, okay, what does this guy want to do? But like I said, he's still a fantastic player, but then I still don't think he's the solution to Manchester United problem. He's just one of the guys who might just fix one of the problems, but the entire problem still needs to be fixed in this type of Manchester United team. If they also get Brandon Bournemouth prolific goals and assists guys in the just concluded season in the English Premier League, then I think that's the way to go for United.
Alright, way to go for Manchester United. Well, for Matheus Cunha, he scored 31 goals in 76 games in all competitions for Wolverhampton Wanderers after joining from Atletico Madrid in 2023. So they are getting a fantastic player in Matheus Cunha. And for Manchester United, talking about Brian Mbeumo, also they're still very much in a conversation with his club, and according to now the former manager, because he will be joining Tottenham Hotspur. Talking about Thomas Frank, he talked about the fact that Wolverhampton Wanderers, Brentford rather, is selling club, and you would expect them wanting to get premium on the Cameroonian international. But then the question is, can Manchester United go all out to dole out 70 million euros for Brentford Football Club? Because for 44-10-3, and you can also watch us live on Facebook, I-FLIER 103.3 FM live. Good, drop your comments, like the page, and of course get to share the video also. Right, let's move away from that, let's go talk about the Club World Cup. Yes, because we are getting at that time where we get to see interesting football games once again, and the fans are definitely looking forward to that one, even though FIFA, yes, they've been trying everything possible to make sure fans are trooping to the stadium to actually watch some of those games. Alright, according to report this afternoon, the Club World Cup officials will use an accelerated semi-automated offside technology that will tell them to stop the game immediately if a player who is more than 10 centimeters offside touches the ball. Well, it's all about technology right now. We are doing everything possible to make sure we do not have a controversy in football, but some people will tell you that having controversy is what makes football really, really interesting. But then in as much as we are getting, improved in technology-wise, that doesn't mean we are still not seeing a whole lot of delay, a whole lot of mistakes from some of this referee, and of course VAR also. But as far as the Club World Cup is concerned, an accelerated semi-automated offside technology will be put in place in all of the games. Fermi, let's talk about this one. Once again, we are getting to see technology being introduced into another big competition.
Quote, meaningless, and then you now get injured. At least if something comes out like a goal or a penalty or a free kick, you can say, okay, yeah, at least I tried to get something for my team, and that's how I got injured. But imagine you go in for a ball and then you get injured and your team does not get anything. So I feel this sort of technology is important. And as we know, our technology is improving in every aspect of the world.
Yeah.
It's also improving in football. Before a few years back, what we knew about was drawing lines on our screens to know who is offside. But now we have semi-automated who will tell you, oh, this player is offside, this and that. So it makes the game more faster. And I think there's been a whole lot of talk that the ball is not in play for up to 60 minutes in a football game in the last few years. So this, I feel, this is going to accelerate the amount of, it's going to improve the amount of time we see and there, so we get to watch more football and enjoy ourselves. So yes, I feel it's something that is important, something that is needed. Protect the players, give the fans much more football to watch, and that's it.
All right, good initiatives from the Club World Cup, and of course FIFA. They are making sure Sundown, likely also will be there. Some of these top African teams will be part of the Club World Cup. Well, you might want to say they do not have the flamboyant player, but then in their own respective leagues also, these guys have been doing well for themselves, and they are ready to ruffle feathers with the big boys across the world of football. But then, Sport Umpire, let's talk about Al-Ahly and Mamelodi Sundown. One of the two African giants when it comes to African football. Mamelodi Sundown recently, they were in the final of a major tournament in Africa, and of course, what more can you say about Al-Ahly? Also, they've dominated the CAF Champions League, and once again, a great opportunity for them to show the world what they've got as far as the African footballer is concerned. How would you rate them going forward in that competition? Do you think they stand a chance to go far, and of course ruffle feathers with some of the big boys across the world?
Yeah, well, 12-time African champions they are likely, and of course the virtually the biggest team in Africa right there. They've always been representing Africa in the Club World Cup for a lot of times. So one of the only two African sides to have gotten into the final in the last 20 editions. So they are, if you want to say which of these teams can actually do well for Africa, he definitely cannot be looking past the starting Al-Ahly team. But then big ups to the other teams from Africa as well, the Esperance, the Mamelodi Sundowns, the Wydad, who would also be representing Africa in this particular competition. But trust me, I think most of these clubs, their chances of doing well definitely reduced because it's an expanded tournament. So we are seeing some of the big teams from Europe. Before it used to be just one team from Europe, the team that gets to win the UEFA Champions League. But now in terms of their football, in terms of their infrastructure and all of that, but I still don't think they are at that level yet to compete with the Europeans. Maybe with the South Americans, they might still want to ruffle feathers, but then when it comes to facing the Europeans, I don't think they can give them a run for their money. But then it's a win with those staggering amounts to be shared. Get more money, we stand a chance to improve our team, we stand a chance to improve the quality of our league and all of that. I think this is where Nigerian teams should also be learning. This is where they should also be learning from. Football is business. You get money for performing well in all of these competitions, and you use this money to improve your team as well, to get fantastic players to your squad. I know you've always been a fan of having players from other countries playing in the league as well. So how do you want to attract these players if you don't pay them very good wages? So these are the competitions where you used to get those money and of course develop your team. Honestly, I'm also looking forward to the performance of Al-Ahly and of course of Mamelodi Sundowns as well in the CAF Champions League. But it just might be like an exhibition for them. It will be recorded in history that the first edition of the expanded Club World Cup, these teams, they also got to feature in that.
All right, maybe in the future we'll get to see the likes of Enyimba and of course You talk about the Remo Star also, who are the current champion of the MPFL. Well, guys, quickly let me put you on the spot because we are still talking about the Club World Cup. Looking at all of the teams who will be participating in this competition, I know it's still early days. The competition is yet to start. Of course, it will kick start on Sunday. Fermi, looking at all of the top teams that will be taking part, which of the team would you say have got what it takes to go on and win this competition? For me personally, I think with current form, I'll be going for Paris Saint-Germain because of the core of the team. But then there are other top teams also that will be taking part. Who is that go-to team for you?
Yes, I feel the go-to team for almost everyone is going to be Paris Saint-Germain. They just won the Champions League very convincingly against a certain Inter side that knocked out the Barcelona side, who are also a very good side too. So I think the main thing to look at I feel the final performance has shown a whole lot of people that they can even get to higher levels than we have seen them give this particular season. But I feel the Real Madrid side, with the improvements made into the team and a new manager, could also have an edge too. And also the Manchester City side with improvements in midfield and all. There's it. Personally, if you're looking at people who probably go on to win, you just have to look at the Europeans. I feel there's no other. If you are saying from South America, we say River Plate to be able to come against this PSG side and be able to hold them. I don't think so. I even feel Inter Miami that even against Al Ahly, I think they're even going to suffer a whole lot because I feel the level that the Al Ahly team against this Inter Miami again. Then you say, okay, and they lost the final. I think that would have demoralized them. You look at Manchester City. Manchester City are coming off one of their worst seasons the last few years. You could say, okay, maybe they are making improvements in leadership. But how will the improvement hit the ground running in the Club World Cup? I don't think so. I think Real Madrid too. Xabi Alonso, yes, he has quality players, Kylian Mbappe, Vinicius Junior, and all that. But the thing that if a new manager is going to still have time to instill his knowledge in this player, so it's clearly going to take some time. Now, I think the other representative from Europe is FC Porto. And Porto, I feel the season they had last season, it's a very comical one. They sacked their manager, and all that was happening along the way. But I think the winners have to come from Europe. And maybe the other teams I could say could challenge a little bit because of the quality of players. The European players have gone there, the Saudi team, and how they are with Inzaghi coming to their team. You could say maybe he can tweak that and make them a better side. But if you are looking at from South America, I feel South American players they have flair and all that. But you cannot start off. You say okay, River Plate going up again. Even in Manchester City that had a postseason, you cannot expect them to go toe-to-toe with them and actually come out undefeated. So I don't feel we just have to look at PSG as the winners of the Club World Cup.
All right, Sport Umpire, do you agree with the sentiment of Fermi? Looking at the Club World Cup, he made mention of Simeone Inzaghi and of course being the new manager of Al Hilal. And if you look at that team right now, they've got some major Europeans, players in that team. And I get the feeling that they would definitely want to also go on to compete really well also.
Yeah, well, Al Hilal would also go on and do very well. But then before I kind of say my own thought on what I feel is going to say, Fermi was actually mentioning European teams and he forgot Chelsea. That's Chelsea would be the competition, but he did mention Chelsea. But then that aside, like he said, he rightly said, I think it's going to be a competition for the Europeans. I don't think some of these other guys from other continents can actually compete with these Europeans. But then I'm kind of looking at two teams, Manchester City and Real Madrid. I think City might just with the new set of players that they have brought in as well, if they click instantly, I think this is City's competition to actually lose. And if City don't get it, I think it's going to be a certain Real Madrid team who might be getting it. I think Madrid have the easiest group. They got Al Hilal, Pachuca, and of course I can't remember the last team in their group, Salzburg, yes, and that'll be Salzburg. So I see Real Madrid getting out of this group, and when Real Madrid get to the knockout stages, I think it's going to be all Uru for this particular team. So I'm looking at the certain Real Madrid with the quality that they have gotten. I think PSG, I'm not really seeing PSG going on to win. I think the Champions League, they'll still be basking in the effort of winning the Champions League. And that might actually maybe hang over still for these guys. They might not really have the zeal and desire to go on and play well in the FIFA Club World Cup. So I'm looking at Manchester City or Madrid.
All right, Manchester City and Real Madrid for Sport Umpire. Well, if you're listening right now, Alright, in case you're just joining us, you're listening to iSport on I-FLIER 103.3 FM. We've been talking about some of the interesting topics around the world of football. And looking forward to the Club World Cup. We talked about the camp of Real Madrid and the camp of Manchester United. We just secured the signing of Matheus Cunha from Wolverhampton Wanderers at £62.5 million. Is what Manchester United dole out to get the Brazilian international, and we are looking forward to how that signing will impact the current Manchester United team, who had a lot of toy time last season. And for Madrid, well, they also had a few toy time also, but then they've really done well for themselves in the transfer market. They brought on board the in-house scene. They brought on board a certain Trent all the way from Liverpool. More still to come for them, but then the transfer market is done and dusted for now. We'll get to see the second half of the transfer market, and then we can go on to talk about some of the top teams who are still very much interested in the transfer market. And speaking of the transfer market, let's move straight to Sporting Lisbon, where things is not really going well right now. The young man talking about Victor Gyökeres is reportedly furious right now. Well, I think if you had an agreement with the president of the club, I really don't know, on the dotted line. But then, if you have just, oral word, that will not stand. And I think that is what the president of Sporting Lisbon is using. The president do not care. He just wants to have 100 million euros. And Victor Gyökeres will leave the club to any club he wants to play for, maybe Manchester United or Arsenal. But according to they talk about that one with the guys here this afternoon. But then it's not about him going to Manchester United or Arsenal. But what I really want to talk about, Fermi, let me talk to you on this one. We've seen a lot of players come out to say they had a gentleman agreement with their respective clubs, but at the end of the day, they tend to just put all of that into the bin, and they tell the player, if the buying club are not ready to pay the amount you are asking for, you are not going anywhere. Case in point, a certain Kylian Mbappe. In fact, Paris Saint-Germain do not want to sell Kylian Mbappe. But then, what do you think the agent of Victor Gyökeres should do? And of course, don't you think they should come to the round table and sort all of this out?
Yeah, I feel coming to a discussion and having said, okay, this is what we want to do. This is the club that are interested. This is the amount they are willing to pay. And coming to let's say a consensus that, okay, this is what we are going to do over this particular issue. That's the only way, because I feel you are keeping an unhappy player in your side, it's not going to give you the best. And if Sporting keep an unhappy player and he doesn't perform as much as they have over the past few years, his value is going to drop. And then you're also going to be losing. The player is also going to be losing. So there's nobody going to win in this sort of situation. Keeping an unhappy player in the club will clearly not make anyone do anything better. So you just have to come to a gentleman's agreement and say, okay, these are the clubs interested. This is the money they are putting forward to sign him. This is this and this is that. And one thing I always say, they always say, okay, we already agreed with the board this year that we are going to sell you next year. Most of these things are usually comical. Because if you look at Florian Wirtz now, I think last year he said he had already agreed with the Bayer Leverkusen board.
Yeah.
And see the amount of money that has to be paid from Bayer Leverkusen. So some of these things you actually have to sign that, okay, so amount is going to, when they bring so amount, and you told me that
you allow me to leave.
Exactly. So there's nothing signed on the dotted line. There's no way of holding me to ransom. All
right, Sport Umpire, do you think Sporting Lisbon should actually reduce the release clause of Victor Gyökeres right now? Of course, they are a business club, they definitely want to sell, but then they want the right amount of money for their number one striker.
Well, I think the two parties are still going to reach a compromise. They're still going to want to meet in the middle. I think Sporting would have to reduce their want to leave this team.
Absolutely.
Has expressed his desire to actually leave this team. And one of the reasons why I wouldn't blame Sporting is that it's their most prized assets currently. And with the amount that players are going out for, Sporting would not also want to miss out. They want to cash in out on a whole lot of money. Like you always say, if you want premium players, you need to pay premium. These guys scored the most goals in Europe. And we know how really hot he is and how people are jostling for a striker in the transfer window. So any team that wants to get him really needs to be paying. But then Sporting also needs to be careful. I think a lot of these buying clubs are also starting to be wise. Once they see that okay, this deal is getting complicated, then they pull out. They don't even they don't even try to actually force or stress it again. And that might be a big message that Sporting is sending out. There have been antecedents of cases like this, so they really need to be careful. There's a certain price that that have been placed on him. Then let him go if any clubs meet that particular valuation. Not that you come this week and increase the price tag again, come next week and increase it again. I think that's not really good for both parties. But just like I said, I think both of them would have to reach a compromise. The agents of Gyökeres and of course Sporting as well. But the major thing is that we've not even known the major clubs who are actually bidding for Gyökeres or actually interested in him. It has just been the social media noise. We've not heard that a particular club has put up a bid, if it has been rejected or if it has been accepted. And I think all of this is because a particular amount has not been stated out. If there's a particular amount, then maybe the bids might be coming in, like we know where some teams would want to start from and see if they can increase their bid and all of that. So but then it's still long time in the transfer window. When it opens again on Monday, I think that will be when we'll see most of these deals properly done. Benjamin Sesko is still out there. Victor Osimhen is still out there. So a lot of guys that you would expect them to move in the summer of the transfer window are still at their current clubs right now.
All right, well, interesting time in the transfer market, and rightly said Benjamin Sesko and Victor Gyökeres also who really desperately wants to leave Sporting Lisbon this transfer window. All right, let's move away from that. Let's go talk about other sport also on the show this afternoon. Right, quickly into the world of tennis. Female tennis players who wish to freeze their eggs and or embryo, they can start a family later in the day. Will have to, keep their ranking. I think I'm loving this particular news because there've been a whole lot of issues for some of the players who decided, to get married, have babies, and at the end of the day, they lose their sport, they lose their ranking. But this time around, the WTA, they want to have a level playing ground for some of these players, and I think this is the perfect opportunity for all of these players to have their ranking intact until they return to the court again. All right, talking about other stories also. Let's talk about the amount of money that will be doled out in one of the major Grand Slam. Talking about total prize money this year, Wimbledon will increase by 70%, 7%, I beg your pardon, to a record £53.5 million. The prize pot worth £50 million in 2024 is doubled the £26.5 million on offer in 2015. So that means the likes of Carlos Alcaraz and Barbara Krejcikova each took home £2.7 million for winning the men's and women's single title respectively last year. So that means we'll get to see a 7%